Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video. And subscribe Relation Tales. Travis, where are you? We need to have a conversation. My wife's voice echoed through the house as she entered through the front door, accompanied by another presence. Aware of my presence due to my car parked in the driveway, she sought me out. I'm upstairs. I'll be down momentarily, I responded, hastily closing the suitcase sprawled out on the bed. Why are you home so early? She inquired upon entering the bedroom, her gaze falling on the packed suitcase. And why are you packing? Oh, I received a call from a potential client. There's an urgent matter, so I left work to prepare. I have to catch a flight in a couple of hours. I apologize for not informing you earlier, but this opportunity arose suddenly. I need to act fast before it slips away, I explained. Ah, I see. Well, I hope you can spare a few minutes because I really need to talk to you, she said, her tone serious. Of course, I have some time, I assured her, grabbing my suitcase and following her downstairs. We proceeded into the kitchen and settled around the table. To my surprise, another man was present, Mike Robinson, a lawyer from the firm where my wife worked. Recognizing her familiar presence, I poured myself a cup of coffee that had been brewed earlier and settled into my seat. Without preamble, she dropped a bombshell. Mike and I have developed feelings for each other. I no longer love you, and I want a divorce. We've already initiated the paperwork. And here's your copy. Despite the shock, I remained composed, absorbing her words with a calm demeanor. All right, I replied evenly, processing the information. I don't see the point in resisting. If it's over between us, then it's over. Can I take a look at the paperwork? It's better to expedite things. As she mentioned an upcoming trip that might prolong the process, I considered the practicalities. Perhaps Mike could arrange for a notary to finalize everything before I depart, I suggested, acknowledging the need for efficiency. Surprisingly, she commended my maturity in handling the situation, expressing relief at avoiding a heated confrontation. I apologize for blindsiding you like this, she admitted. But I agree it's best to address it head-on and move forward. Resigned to the reality of the situation, I agreed to review the paperwork. Let's take a look at the details, I responded thoughtfully, scanning the division of assets and contemplating the implication. I pondered, noting a particular aspect. Regarding spousal support, I'm curious about that. You have a decent job yourself. Why are you requesting $2,000 a month? I questioned. We researched it and calculated based on our incomes. You actually earn about 4 times what I do, so the court's formula arrived at that figure, she explained. I see. The only concern I have is that there are significant changes looming within my company. I'd prefer not to revisit court proceedings to renegotiate this. How about we modify it to a fair percentage of my income? Let's say 25%. That should actually give you more, considering my last paycheck, and it'll adjust automatically with changes in my salary, I suggested. Wow, that's incredibly generous of you, and it's definitely a smart move. Okay, Mike will make that adjustment and we'll all initial it, my wife acknowledged, a sense of gratitude evident in her voice. Well, you've given me an amazing 10 years, so it's only fair to reciprocate. Now about your request for 60% ownership of the business. Considering you're not involved in its day-to-day operations, I'm hesitant to relinquish control. How about we adjust that to 49%? After all, I'm the driving force behind its success. We can amend the investment split to give you 80% of the current investments. I'm confident I can rebuild what I'm sacrificing, I proposed. All right, that sounds fair to me. As long as I can keep the house. I adore this place, she insisted. I'm okay with that. In fact, I'll be so engrossed in work that I won't have time for our beach house. I'm not much of a beach person anyway. How about we rephrase it to state that I'll transfer my share of all our current properties? I suggested. I might just opt for a low-maintenance condo somewhere. Travis, I'm truly amazed by your generosity, she remarked. Well, like I said, I'll be too preoccupied to fully enjoy the properties, and I'm confident I can rebuild my portfolio, I assured her. All right, let's discuss child support. Personally, I think the amount specified here is a bit low, and there's no provision for adjusting it as my income increases. I want to ensure that my kids are well provided for. How about we amend this to state that 25% of all my income in this country goes towards child support? This way, it not only covers my earnings from work but also any other income I receive from investments here. Additionally, since you'll be the custodial parent, it makes sense for them to be on your insurance, I suggested. Okay, that sounds reasonable. I'll have David log on to the WIFI and print out the new documents. We can sign and notarize them. Then David can take them down to get filed, she agreed. Thank you, Travis. You've handled this situation with a lot of maturity. And I appreciate it, my wife acknowledged gratefully. The documents were printed, the notary arrived, and we signed the papers. I grabbed my suitcase and headed off to the airport. 1 month had passed and the sound of my ringtone stirred me from a light dose on the sandy shores of Cabo. Without needing to glance at the caller ID, I knew exactly who was on the other end of the line. "Hello, Angelina. What brings you to call me today?" Was my generosity insufficient? I quipped, answering the call on speaker to spare myself from holding the phone to my ear. "You deceitful scoundrel. You despicable jerk. I don't know how you pulled it off, but you won't get away with this." Angelina's voice seethed with anger. "Why, whatever could you be referring to, my dear?" I responded with feigned innocence. "Don't play dumb with me. There's a truck parked outside this house and the deputy sheriff is here serving eviction papers. Well, naturally, the previous owners would require you and your boyfriend to vacate the premises before they can take possession," I explained calmly. "But you transferred the house to me. Who are these new owners you speak of?" "I am the rightful owner," Angelina protested vehement. "Well, technically speaking, that's not entirely accurate. What I transferred to you were the properties we owned at the time the divorce papers were finalized. However, by that point, we hadn't owned any property for over 3 months. And since your name wasn't on the deeds, I didn't require your signature to sell them. Even the beach house." Angelina's voice trembled with disbelief. "I did mention I wasn't much of a beach person, didn't I?" I replied matter-of-factly. "You heartless bastard. Where are you? We need to meet to finalize the paperwork so I can claim my share of the company." Well, about that," I hesitated, bracing for her reaction. "You didn't." Angelina's tone dropped to a whisper filled with dread. "About 6 months ago, actually. I've only been managing it for the new owners on a salary until they got settled. Truth be told, I stopped working there altogether a week prior to our last conversation." "Then that means..." Angelina trailed off, realization sinking in. "No salary means no maintenance," I confirmed, feeling a pang of guilt despite myself. "But what about the kids? You promised you'd take care of them." Angelina's voice quivered with concern. "Absolutely not. What I meant was that I'm committed to looking after my own children. Since I'm not their biological father, I don't feel any obligation to care for them. You might want to discuss financial support with Deborah and Joseph. They're actual parents. Deanna plays quite a role, doesn't it? Well, at least I've got my savings and investments." She trailed off as my laughter became uncontrollable. "Let me guess," she sighed. "That's all vanished, too. I've actually moved all of that into the offshore account I established after selling the business. Good luck tracing any of it. We'll let the court decide on that matter. Best of luck with that." I provided everything precisely as stipulated in the documents you signed and had notarized. You received 49% of all the businesses I owned at the time of signing. You received all the property we owned at the time of signing. You received your share of my income at the time of signing. The child support is precisely 20% of my income in the United States of America. It's not my responsibility if you never bothered to verify whether I still owned a business, had any property, or actually had income at that time. I never claimed any of those things. You're receiving exactly what you're entitled to. What do you mean? I supported you and was your wife for 10 years. I deserve more than nothing. Are you serious? You've been cheating on me for at least the past 5 years. The moment I left, you moved your latest fling in. You're unfaithful and you deserve nothing. Oh, and I've filed a lawsuit against your company too. Turns out they have a morality clause in their employee handbook that prohibits affairs between co-workers. Those videotapes I sent of you getting intimate in the conference room should ensure both of you get fired. Moreover, the ethics committee is probing him because they somehow got evidence of him engaging in a sexual relationship with a client while representing her. He could end up disbarred because of that. It's quite a predicament, considering he won't simply be able to jump to another or open his own after being fired. Darn, I need to reach David. Don't bother, he won't pick up. What do you mean? I've heard he was the victim of a violent mugging. He's probably in an ambulance on his way to Mercy General right now. Maybe it's time for you to consider finding a new boyfriend. Oh my goodness, not even close. Although the Latina beauty line next to me right now often says the same thing, usually while we're both naked. The call ended shortly after. My Latina companion woke from her nap and suggested we return to the enclosed cabana, where clothing was optional. I had rewarded her with this trick for keeping me informed about my wife's activities. She had called earlier to inform me that the divorce papers had been filed and they were planning to confront me that evening. After leaving the law firm, she went home to pack and we met at the airport before flying to Cabo together. In another 2 days, we would head to Costa Rica, where there's a sizable expat community and one can live lavishly for less. Second story. Hi all. I need this off my chest, so I'll write about it here to also get some perspective. I recently started playing music again. And unfortunately, as it turns out, the music scene is full of predators. However, I met a guitarist who genuinely seemed like a really solid person. He even reached out to me to send a comfort text because he saw a ton of guys hoard on me after a performance and he just wanted me to know that he wasn't one of them. that he just wanted to get to know me because I seemed cool, that boundaries were important, and that he knows navigating new social scenes is hard. He ended up coming by my place to hang out and talk about what goes into recording, though I don't have the time to indulge too much since I work 40 hours a week. That plus trying to keep everything else in my life together gives me very little time for my other hobbies. For reference, he's a musician full-time. He's a fairly talented man. I was never interested in him. He wasn't necessarily my physical type, so I felt safe just being friends. I always felt very comfortable with him, and his personality was very in tune with mine. I learned that he was talented and intelligent as well as sensitive. He loves to cook and he loved fashion. We shared so many interests in common. It really felt like we were cut from the same cloth. We slowly discovered how similar we were, though now I'll never be sure if any of it was actually genuine or just part of his game. He didn't tell me he had a girlfriend until about the third time we hung out. Even then, he only did it because I told him that people were saying he had a crush on me. It ended up being he was in a 6-year-long relationship and they lived together, which was fine by me since I was involved with someone else at the time as well, casually. The man I was seeing ended up being a total psycho. He was living with a girlfriend and cheating on her. I ended up finding everything out and telling her what was going on. There was so much drama involved. During that tough period, my guitarist friend, whom we'll refer to as Jay, was my rock. He provided unwavering support and stability when I needed it most. Our friendship flourished as we shared our vulnerabilities, exchanged music, discussed kitchen gadgets and fashion trends, and delved into our perspectives on the world. Together, we vented about people we disliked and indulged in all the activities that deepen a bond between friends. We began spending more and more time together. Strangely, I never questioned the amount of time we spent together because Jay assured me that he and his girlfriend had a strong, secure relationship that didn't require constant togetherness. He often expressed his happiness about finding someone with whom he could make things work. Looking back, I realize he sometimes seemed condescending about my lack of relationship experience. I've always struggled in the dating department, as I tend to be trusting and optimistic, often attracting the wrong kind of people into my life. He started giving me gifts which I thought was just kindness, but then he started to call me cute, etc., which I told him made me feel uncomfortable. He didn't do it after. I'd be lying if I said I didn't start to notice how he would look at me. It was definitely lust and possession. I felt like his pet bear at some point. I started to develop feelings, of course. He was always so kind to me and just there. When I started feeling like I needed physical affection, I told him I couldn't talk to him anymore because it was inappropriate since I had developed feelings for him. I tried to cut everything off immediately. I had to return some equipment to him, so we ended up talking the day after my confession, and he said he felt the same way. This was so confusing to me. I told him he needed to tell his girlfriend. We ended up seeing each other for about 4 days straight, almost the whole of the days, and unfortunately it got a bit physical and we made out. It felt so wrong and so right at the same time. Unfortunately, the nature aspect of being a human was hard to control. He always seemed reluctant to get physical. I always thought that it was because he didn't want to cheat, but looking back, I think it was because he wanted me to be the one that started everything so he wouldn't have to take any blame for it. So he could always say that I came onto him physically. He said he would tell her, but he was taking too long. So I ended up blocking him everywhere on Valentine's Day because I knew I deserved more than that situation. I woke up to an email from him at 1 a.m. He had told her everything about his feelings for me, etc., and he was calling me because he was going to choose me. Blocking him led to a change of heart on his part. Eventually, he chose to remain with her. He penned a lengthy paragraph expressing the depth of our connection and offered an apology. However, his behavior during our last encounter was disrespectful. When I reached out to hold his hand, he rebuffed me, telling me not to push it. Deep down, I sensed it would be our final meeting, and all I wanted was to cherish that moment one last time. I now realize how foolish I was to believe that a man in a relationship merely sought friendship. It's clear to everyone, except me, how much he admired me. I feel incredibly foolish and naive. In the end, I was insignificant to him, a mere distraction from the monotony of his long-term relationship. I was nothing more than a tool to inject excitement back into his life. I can only imagine the manipulative stories he fed her to persuade her to stay. He isn't a liar per se, but he omits things, so he lies through omission. He's also insanely manipulative, probably one of the best manipulators I've met. The fact that he's intelligent explains why he's so good at it. Everything has a justification and an answer, and he's always just a tormented soul trying to be better and doing his best. I don't think that's true. I think he's probably done this kind of thing before, except no one has ever gotten as close as I did in his life. I realize now that I don't even know who he is. He only ever told me what he wanted me to know. None of it was genuine. He wanted to have sex with me, but he wanted it to be my idea. I'm just happy it never went that far. I refused to have sex with him because that was a strong line I just wouldn't cross. He kept asking me what I wanted while we were kissing. But he had left to the bathroom and used mouthwash and then kept asking me that. He just wanted me to initiate it so he could be a victim of my seduction. I will get over it. But he saw what that other man did to me and he betrayed me even more. I know I was still a participant in this and I take full responsibility for my actions. But I really thought I had met someone that I would never meet again. I can't even trust any of the parts of him that he showed me because now I feel like they were curated just to make me fall. He was romancing me the entire friendship and I fell for it because I was lonely and insecure. I'm in so much pain. And of course he gets to go home to someone to sleep with and console him, while I stay here traumatized. Thanks for joining us on this chapter of Relation Tales. If you were moved by these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Don't miss out on the upcoming emotional roller coaster of relationships. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to share more compelling tales with you. Until next time, remember, every relationship has a story worth telling. See you soon.